Coming on the heels of securing a collaboration agreement and strategic investment of $16.9 million with Sumitomo Metal Mining, I'm joined today with Nano One CEO Dan Blondal to speak on the significance of this development for his company. My good sir, welcome.
Thanks, Brandon. It's a pleasure to be here.
And it's a pleasure to have you. Well, first off, congratulations on your collaboration agreement with Sumitomo. Can you speak towards the significance of this agreement for Nano One and your future operations?
Listen, Brandon, it builds on a whole number of other partnerships and collaborations that we've had, and of course, successes we've had towards the commercialization of our technology. But Sumitomo Metal Mining is probably one of the most respected cathode and mining and refining companies in the world. They are probably the most vertically integrated miner in the space. They mine nickel, they refine it, they turn it into NCA for high energy density, long range electric vehicle batteries, and have been doing so longer than anyone in the world. And so, tremendous amount of experience, a very large company, actually, part of course, the Sumitomo family of companies in Japan. They bring a tremendous amount of know-how, industrialization know-how. They understand the market very well, the supply chain very well, and it's quite an honor to have brought a Japanese partner to the table with such an amazing pedigree.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can imagine so as well. And we're going to dive a lot more into this agreement and what it means for your company and the industry as a whole. But I wanted to start with something really quickly. For those who may not understand the work that you've been doing with your team, can you give us a quick overview of your one pot process and why it's so unique that it's garnered such attention from a multi-billion-dollar company like Sumitomo?
I think at its basis, the one pot technology, one pot process is a technology that allows us to combine the key ingredients, lithium, nickel, manganese, cobalt, or lithium, iron, and phosphorus into a cathode material without going through chemical intermediates like sulfates and without producing a sulfate waste stream. So there's basically a simplification in the supply chain, and there's an elimination of all the water waste and all the resulting sulfate waste. So that environmental improvement and that supply chain simplification is of great interest, not only to big integrated miners like Sumitomo and Rio Tinto, one of our other partners, but also to the OEMs who are looking to find ways to collapse, simplify the supply chain, reduce waste, improve the sustainability, the environmental improvement, and ultimately improve the cost, and simplify and secure the supply chain. So those are all really key components that drive the kind of international global interest that we're seeing in Nano One.
Yeah, fantastic. And I appreciate that for anybody who's new to this story, for getting that little bit of understanding there. Well, returning back to the agreement, Sumitomo is making a substantial $16.9 million equity investment into Nano One. How do you plan to utilize this investment to advance your goals?
So most of those funds are going to be focused on our operations in Quebec. So last year, we completed the acquisition of Johnson Matthey's lithium iron phosphate facility in Candiac, Quebec, just outside of Montreal. It's on the south shore, about 20 kilometers outside of Montreal. With that came a team of 50 very experienced people who had been making lithium iron phosphate in Quebec for the last, actually, they've been making LFP there probably since 2006. So it is by far the most experienced LFP production team outside of China. And they've been making LFP longer than almost anyone in the world. From a commercial point of view, albeit it's a small team by anything we've seen in China. It is still probably the most experienced team in North America, if not around the world. So that experience really provides us a launching pad. Listen, the learning curves of commercializing technology, supplying the automotive company, putting the right certification process in place, the quality assurance systems, the EHS, the health and safety systems. All of those are really paramount to being able to supply the automotive industry. We got that lock, stock, and barrel ready to go with this team and with the facility. We are converting that facility to the one pot process to drive down the cost. We've eliminated about half the equipment in that facility because we have a much simpler process. We've eliminated all the wastewater handling and all the chemical handling, waste chemical handling, because we don't need any of it. And we are just starting to turn those machines on and starting to supply materials to our partners. What will come from this, so that funding from Sumitomo will help us, operate and drive the piloting of all this stuff. But ultimately, it's also going to help us improve the process and help us find a way to integrate it with Sumitomo's LFP ambitions in Japan and elsewhere in the world. So we're going to be combining our knowledge. They also have an LFP facility that they recently acquired that used a similar technology to what Johnson Matthey used to use. So it's a very natural conversion of their facility, for instance, that might very well come from this collaboration. So there's a lot of fantastic synergy here with that team, but it really does help provide us the big extra boost to launch what we're doing in Quebec. Ultimately, that's just a platform for us to expand into much larger production, going from 2,000 tons to 25,000 tons to hundreds of thousands of tons of material in various, aiming to do that in various jurisdictions around the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for that. And speaking about the plants that we were just talking about now, Nano One also plans to build its first commercial LFP plant. Can you share more information about this facility and the future plans for it?
Yes. So as I explained, the existing facility there had been making LFP for the last 10 years, and actually even before that in a much smaller facility. Once we have all of that operational, that'll be about 2,000 tons a year, which is a really small amount. Right now in China, they're making over 1 million tons of LFP. In order to scale up for the rest of the world, we have to get to many hundreds of thousands of tons. Really, the design of a plant that we can then replicate and duplicate in various jurisdictions around the world. So an automotive plant might have 3 or 4 of these lines strapped together to bring them up to 100,000 tons, for instance. And we could see doing that in Quebec and central Canada. We could see doing it in the US. We could see doing it in India and Japan and Europe as well. Really, it's design once, build many. That's really the philosophy we need going forward. What we have this fantastic facility to prove it, to demonstrate it, to use as a launch pad, to train the people that are going to be needed to run these facilities, to use as a test platform for the engineering designs for the larger capacity, and ultimately to refine the process further as we start to deploy it out into the field.
Yeah, and you spoke a lot about growth, and when that's something that I think a lot of people are very curious about right now. If we can take a moment to talk about the macro picture here for investors to get better understanding, what are the anticipated market trends for LFP and NMC cathode materials, especially in regions such as Japan and North America?
Well, listen, 99% of the world's LFP is made in China today. It's actually probably even a larger number than that, 99.9. But the facility we have there has a nameplate capacity of 2,400 tons. It has to go to many hundreds of thousands of tons in North America and well into the millions of tons in the rest of the world outside of China. So there are a very big amount of demand coming for lithium iron phosphate. It will go into not only into industrial applications and industrial vehicles, but we see it going into the energy storage market to store energy from renewable energy sources like wind and solar, but also mass market electric vehicles. Because in order to have mass adoption of electric vehicles, they need to be lower cost. And a lower cost vehicle has a smaller battery. A smaller battery needs to be cycled more often. NMC, you can't cycle it with that kind of frequency because it's too hard on the battery. LFP has the cyclability. And so LFP is really the only technology that allows us to go to smaller, more affordable batteries that need to be charged more often, but they bring the affordability down, and that's we believe that will drive really the mass market in electric vehicles. We've seen it happen in China. As soon as they started taking the incentives off of the high nickel NMC long range batteries, LFP took off. It's now 60 to 70% of the market share in China, and it's not a China thing. It's going to happen elsewhere in the world as well, and it's going to be driven by the mass market electric vehicles, and as I say, by the energy storage market.
Yeah, and sticking on the line of production and licensing and coming back to the news release mentions plans for a potential joint venture or licensing agreement for large-scale production of LFP and NMC materials in various global jurisdictions. Can you provide insights into the timeline and scope of these potential agreements?
So it's all gonna really start to kick off after we get our first offtake agreements, and we're very close to getting there right now. We're shipping materials out. Just 2 weeks ago, we announced that we had proven the existing reactors at the facility, which are basically full-size reactors. It's exactly the size of reactors we're going to use in a full-scale plant. We've been able to prove that the LFP can be made consistently and reliably in those reactors. That gives us the full confidence that it's a scalable technology, and we're able to ship those materials now off for validation and ultimately for offtake with our partners. That offtake will drive the sort of initial expansion to the 25,000 ton plant. But we believe in parallel to that, we'll see demand for many hundreds of thousands of tons. And so we're ramping up with third-party sort of engineering companies to develop the design of that plant so they can be all rolled out really in parallel to what we're going to be doing in the existing facility there.
Yeah, fantastic and great to hear. It's fantastic to see this type of development domestically, back at home, especially in the home country. Thank you so much, Dan, for your time. Very excited about everything that's been happening. Congratulations once again on that agreement, and looking forward to hearing what's in store for your company again here in the near future. For anyone who wants to find out more information, just go to that website just down below that you're seeing there now, and you can find all the information you'd like to on Nano One. Thanks again, Dan.
Thank you, Brandon.